Distribution, stupid, said no swing voter ever. But that's where Team Trump is focused today, against an undisputed American military hero. Donald Trump's newly minted Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, in short order, is exacting Donald Trump's revenge on retired four-star general, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley. Quote, removing his security detail, revoking his security clearance, and ordering an inspector general inquiry into his record. Viewers of this program remember all too well that General Milley was a frequent target of Donald Trump's rage and deranged rants that included, quote, suggesting that General Milley had committed treason and should be put to death, end quote. In part because of public threats like that, threats that sound like they're straight out of North Korea or Russia. Quote, General Milley received a preemptive pardon from President Biden, a pardon that means, quote, General Milley cannot be court-martialed, but a finding against him could lead to a decision to reduce his rank, even in retirement. In plain English, reduce his rank means potentially taking away one of General Milley's 4 stars. Stars he earned for extraordinary bravery on the battlefield and in the theater of war, leading our brave men and women in uniform. The details matter here today. This is just some of what 4-star General Mark Milley did to earn those 4 stars. There's his extensive background of combat experience in Egypt, Panama, Haiti, Bosnia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, and Colombia. There's General Milley's long list of awards and honors, from the Army's Distinguished Service Medal to the Legion of Merit, the National Defense Service Medal, the Afghanistan Campaign Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal. There are too many to actually list here. And despite the extraordinary record of service and patriotism and courage, this is who Donald Trump has chosen to humiliate and potentially demote. It's petty, like ordering General Milley's portraits to be yanked off the walls at the Pentagon. But make no mistake, it is also dangerous. Trump's retribution, punishing General Mark Milley by pulling his security detail, is a serious threat to Mark Milley's life. We know that in the wake of the 2020 strike that killed a top Iranian commander, Soleimani, quote, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard posted a video explicitly threatening 15 former Trump administration officials with imminent assassination, quote, by drone, sniper fire, bomb, lethal injection, or stabbing, end quote. Topping what U.S. officials informally call Iran's kill list was, among others, then chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley. Veteran journalist Bob Woodward reported on just how serious the threats to Mark Milley's life were in his book War, writing this, quote, since retiring, Milley had received a nonstop barrage of death threats that he, at least in part, attributed to Trump's repeated, aggressive attempts to discredit him. As a former chairman, Milley was provided round-the-clock government security for 2 years, but he had taken additional precautions at significant personal expense, installing bulletproof glass and blast-proof curtains at his home. Bulletproof glass and blast-proof curtains, because Donald Trump threatened him. Now, exacting revenge on General Milley by pulling his security detail, the detail that's protecting him from that publicly stated threat from Iran, is nothing short of putting a bullseye on his back, making it easier for America's known enemies to target an American military hero. And why? Why is this happening, you might ask? Because retired 4-star General Mark Milley was willing to do what far too few people have been brave enough to do, which was to find a line and hold it and speak the truth to power. He went on the record saying, quote, no one has ever been as dangerous to this country as Donald Trump, telling Bob Woodward this, quote, now I realize he's a total fascist. He is the most dangerous person to this country. Donald Trump, he said, is, quote, fascist to the core. And he didn't just say it in private to reporters. He said it in public out loud so that the brave women in uniform and every American citizen could hear him.
You see, we in uniform are unique. We are unique among the world's armies. We are unique among the world's militaries. We don't take an oath to a country. We don't take an oath to a tribe. We don't take an oath to a religion. We don't take an oath to a king. or queen or a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We don't take an oath to an individual. We take an oath to the Constitution, and we take an oath to the idea that is America, and we're willing to die to protect it.
Words some of Trump's cabinet picks might want to ruminate on. We don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator, even if that wannabe dictator tries to exact his revenge on you. It's where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. NBC News national security correspondent Courtney Kube is here. Also joining us, retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson's here. And with me at the table for the hour, host of the Independent Americans podcast, founder and CEO of Independent Veterans of America, Paul Rieckhoff, joins us. Courtney Kube, you covered General Milley. What can you tell us about his reaction to this extraordinary move by Pete Hegseth today?
Yeah, I've been covering General Milley for a long time, actually, since he was a commander in Afghanistan years ago. So I will say he is not commenting on any of this at this point. But I think that what we need to remember here is where the threat really is against Mark Milley. Yes, Iran, as you mentioned, Nicole, absolutely there is a concern that Iran could be continuing to target U.S. officials who were involved in the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, but also who were involved in things even after that. So other efforts for the U.S. to go after Iran and Iranian proxy groups. And remember, one thing you have to remember about Iran is they do not always respond right away. Sometimes their responses and their retaliation, it comes months, if not years later. So that is a threat. But really what the bigger threat to Mark Milley has been in recent years is from people who are very loyal to Donald Trump because of the sorts of comments and statements that he has made that you just outlined there. That has been one of the bigger threats that he has faced. It's really more of an internal United States threat that has caused him to continue to have security, to take the measures that he outlined to Bob Woodward in that book, and to be continue to be concerned about his safety and security. Now, in addition to pulling his security clearance, his security detail, the new Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, literally on day one also decided to pull General Milley's security clearance, and he has ordered the Department of Defense, the Pentagon's Office of Inspector General, to review or conduct an inquiry into Milley's time in service, into his more than 4 decades in the military, frankly, most likely focusing on his last several years, to determine and make a recommendation about whether there should be a grade determination board that could ultimately decide to lower General Milley's rank. He retired as a 4-star general. He has all the benefits and the pay that go along with that retirement. But if, in fact, a grade determination board goes through and finds he did not serve honorably during his time as a 4-star general, they could knock him down in grade to the rank where they find him to have last served honorably. Nicole, I got to say, I do not expect this to be a quick process. The OIG, they are busy. The Inspector General's office, they have a lot of projects. And I have to point out that the Inspector General here, Robert Storch, was one of the ones who was fired quietly last Friday night. So now they are working with an acting Inspector General on top of everything else. But even if that occurred, even if they do make a recommendation to review his grade, his rank and grade that he retired at, I don't expect that to be an extremely fast process here, Nicole.
Let me play some of what you're drawing our attention to, and that is the threats that General Milley faced domestically. Here he is talking about it in an interview with 60 Minutes.
He is suggesting that you be punished by death. The former commander-in-chief to his former top military advisor.
Look, I'm a soldier. I've been faithful and loyal to the Constitution of the United States for 44 and a half years. And my family and I have sacrificed greatly for this country, my mother and father before them. And, as much as these comments are directed at me, it's also directed at the institution of the military. And there's 2.1 million of us in uniform. And the American people can take it to the bank that all of us, every single one of us, from private to general, we're loyal to that Constitution and we'll never turn our back on it no matter what the threats, no matter what the humiliation, no matter what. If we're willing to die for that document, if we're willing to deploy to combat, if we're willing to lose an arm, a leg, an eye, to protect and support and defend that document and protect the American people, then we're willing to live for it too.
I mean, I wonder, Courtney, if you could just sort of tell people about him as someone who knows him and covered him. I mean, I had a chance to meet him, and his parents served. Service to the country and to the military is like the air he breathes, the idea of sacrifice and the idea of reverence for the men and women who served. I mean, his religion is to keep the faith to the men and women of the military, to lift them up, to help put them back together. It is his work. It is his wife's work. Talk about who he is to the men and women of the military.
So I think that Mark Milley has always been a frustrated historian. At the end of the day, if you would sit down and have a conversation with him, there is almost a absolute certainty that he would talk to you about the future of war and the history of war. He'd often throw in references to Attila the Hun and the Treaty of Westphalia. He loves to talk about history, and I think part of the reason that we have heard some of these comments that are, where he's even like that 60 Minutes interview that you just ran while he was still the chairman, that was literally in his last few days as chairman of the Joint Chiefs, is he is a student of history, and he loves to look back at how things have happened in the past and how they could repeat in the future. And I think that drives a lot of the comments that he has made. I have to say, one thing that's been really striking as all of this has unfolded, and Nicole, yes, his security detail and clearance were revoked yesterday by Secretary Hegseth, but this actually started last week. On the day that President Trump was inaugurated, General Milley's brand new portrait that had just been hung up just around the corner from us here in the Pentagon on the E-ring, his portrait as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, it had just been hung up only days earlier, was quietly removed. It was the area where it was hanging was painted over. The holes were filled in. It's like it was never hanging there.